You don't have to raise your voice to prove your value. You don't have to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. And you don't have to fight every battle that shows up on your doorstep just because it knocked loud enough. Silence is not weakness. It's wisdom dressed in discipline. There was a time I used to believe that if I didn't speak up immediately after someone disrespected me, I was somehow allowing it. That I was letting them win. That I was shrinking. But I've come to realize that silence is not about losing, it's about choosing. Choosing not to waste your energy. Choosing not to let someone else control your emotional temperature. Choosing in that moment not to give someone else the power to define who you are. You see, anyone can explode, anyone can clap back, anyone can curse, shout, or swing when they feel slighted. That doesn't take strength. That takes impulse. It takes a short fuse and a long list of regrets waiting to happen. But to stay still, to breathe, to let the storm pass while you remain calm at the center, now that takes something most people don't have. It takes emotional maturity. It takes self-respect. It takes vision, the kind that sees past the moment and into the consequences. You don't win your value by fighting for it. You reveal your value by refusing to let it be shaken. When you stay quiet in the face of disrespect, people might not understand you. They might say, you're scared, passive, weak. But those same people won't be there to pick up the broken pieces of your peace when your emotions run wild and wreck your reputation. Don't fall for the pressure to prove anything. You don't need to prove strength by shouting. The lion doesn't roar every time a hyena mocks it. It simply remembers that it's a lion, and lions don't explain themselves. And here's the truth. Your silence might not fix the disrespect, but it preserves something more important, your dignity. Because when you speak from a wounded ego, your words carry poison. But when you stay silent with purpose, your presence speaks volume. Let them misunderstand you. Let them assume. Let them paint you with their own fears and insecurities. That's not your business. Your business is your inner world, your character, your values, your energy. Protect it at all costs. Because if silence can hold a room still, if silence can carry more weight than 1,000 words, then surely it's not surrender, it's self-mastery. Silence isn't walking away, it's rising above. It's knowing that your time, your energy, and your peace are far too valuable to be wasted on noise. Let the world talk. Let them wonder why you didn't respond. Let them sit with the echo of their own disrespect while you keep walking. Strong people don't scream, they don't beg, they don't battle for breadcrumbs of validation. They stay silent, they stay focused, and they stay free. There's something incredibly dangerous about reacting in the heat of emotion, not just because of what you say, but because of what you give away. Every time you react without thinking, every time you snap, shout, explode, or retaliate, you are trading your power for a moment of release. And that moment, it feels good for about 5 seconds. But what follows? Regret, embarrassment, damage that can't always be undone. When someone disrespects you, the immediate reaction your body wants to give is fire. You feel the flush rise up your neck, your fists clench, your heart races. Your pride says, don't let them get away with that. Show them who you are. But in that moment, if you follow that voice, you're not showing them who you are. You're showing them they own you. Let that sink in. The moment you allow someone else's words or actions to dictate your emotional state, they've won. Not because they're right, not because they're better, but because they got you to forget yourself. They pulled you out of character. They reached into your calm and replaced it with chaos. And the truth is, they couldn't do that unless you gave them permission. You see, we live in a world that rewards reactions. Social media thrives on outrage. Everybody's clapping back, dragging, exposing, canceling. It feels like if you don't respond immediately, you're weak. If you don't defend yourself, you're guilty. If you don't explode, You're letting someone walk over you. But that's a lie. Strength isn't found in reaction, it's found in restraint. You don't have to match someone's disrespect to prove you're not afraid. In fact, if you have to match it, maybe you're more afraid than you know. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who's calm. It's the one who hears the insult, feels the fire, and still chooses to stay centered. That's not silence, that's control. And control is power. You don't get stronger by flaring up every time someone crosses a line. You get stronger by recognizing that your emotions are not remote controlled by other people. You are not their puppet. You are not a victim of their mood. And just because they're disrespectful doesn't mean you have to become disrespectful too. The greatest victories in life aren't the ones where you tear someone down. They're the ones where you refuse to be pulled down with them. You stayed steady. You stayed present. You remembered who you were. That's what control really is. Not bottling it up, not suppressing it, but owning it, directing it, knowing that just because a storm rages outside doesn't mean it has to enter your spirit. So when they disrespect you, when they test your name, your patience, your values, not because you're afraid to react, but because you're strong enough to choose not to. It's human nature to take things personally. When someone talks down to you, when they dismiss your worth, when they treat you like you don't matter, it stings, it cuts deep. And in that moment, it feels like they've told the world something true about you. But here's the truth you must never forget. When someone disrespects you, they aren't exposing your value, they're exposing their own lack of it. Their words don't define you, they reveal them. Their tone, their mockery, their passive-aggressive remarks, all of it is a mirror reflecting what's going on inside them, not inside you. People who are whole, people who are at peace with themselves don't go around tearing others down. They don't gossip, they don't belittle, they don't lash out just because they can, they don't need to. Because when you're secure within, you have no desire to make others feel small. So the next time someone disrespects you, instead of absorbing their poison, observe it. Instead of thinking, what did I do wrong? Ask yourself, what are they projecting? This mindset shift is vital. It keeps you from internalizing the garbage others try to throw at you. And let's be honest, some people walk around with emotional wounds they've never addressed, and rather than heal, they inflict. Rather than take responsibility, they deflect. They dress up their pain as sarcasm, disguise their envy as jokes, and wear their insecurity like armor, thinking no one can see it. But you can. If you're paying attention, you'll realize disrespect is rarely personal. It's a symptom of a deeper struggle within the person delivering it. Some people will try to provoke you simply because they can't handle the way you carry yourself. Your confidence intimidates them. Your peace disturbs them. Your refusal to stoop down to pettiness frustrates them. So they poke, they prod, they try to get a rise out of you, not because you're weak, but because they are. And they need you to crumble so they can feel taller by comparison. But you don't have to play that game. You don't have to pick up the shame they try to hand you. Let it fall. Let them wrestle with the mess they've made. You, on the other hand, have a choice, a powerful one. You can decide right there in the heat of that moment that their actions speak volumes, but not about you, about them. We all want to feel respected, and we all deserve to be. But you will meet people in this life who will not respect you, not because you don't deserve it, but because they don't know how to give it. It's not your job to teach them with anger. It's not your job to prove anything through confrontation. Your job is to know who you are so completely, so unshakably, that their disrespect slides off your soul like rain off a coat. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you knew it didn't belong to you in the first place. It's something about silence that unsettles people, not because it's empty, but because it's full. It carries weight. It lingers in the air long after a moment has passed, demanding that people confront themselves in the absence of distraction. And when it comes after disrespect, silence becomes even more powerful because it refuses to give them the reaction they were counting on. It denies them the satisfaction of knowing they got under your skin. It leaves them alone with the echo of their own behavior. That's where the regret begins to grow. When someone disrespects you and you answer back with fire, you've just given them a battle. You've just created noise. And in noise, no one reflects. No one thinks clearly. They defend themselves, justify their actions, and get lost in the exchange. But when you meet their disrespect with silence, calm, deliberate, powerful silence, you force them into a space they're not used to sitting in, accountability. Silence makes people uncomfortable because they can't argue with it. They can shout, they can mock, they can try to provoke. But silence doesn't flinch. It doesn't give them a foothold. It doesn't validate their behavior or give them permission to keep going. It holds up a mirror and says, look at yourself. This is what you chose. And that's a hard thing to face when the adrenaline has worn off and all that remains is the stillness. People start to reflect when they don't get the response they expected. They begin to question themselves. Why didn't he respond? Why didn't she bite back? Was I out of line? Did I go too far? You see, your silence doesn't make you invisible, it makes you unforgettable. It leaves an imprint, not just in their memory, but in their conscience. It becomes the quiet space where they have to wrestle with what they did without you carrying any of the emotional weight. And make no mistake, people do regret disrespect, especially when it's not returned. It humbles them. Maybe not right away, but eventually. Because when the anger fades, when the crowd is gone, when they're left alone with their thoughts, your silence becomes the voice they hear the loudest. Not because it shouted, but because it spoke without speaking. And that kind of voice, it's impossible to ignore. Silence gives people a chance to grow, and it gives you a chance to preserve your dignity. It creates space for maturity, space for reflection, space for the kind of regret that can actually lead to change. And while you're protecting your peace, they're sitting in the shadow of their own actions, wondering why it doesn't feel like victory. That's the silent consequence. The regret that doesn't need to be forced. It comes naturally when someone is left alone with the truth and no one to argue. So when you say nothing, you're not saying nothing at all. You're saying more than words ever could. You're giving them the opportunity to face themselves. And sometimes that's the greatest lesson of all. When you've been disrespected, betrayed, humiliated, something inside you rises up. It's primal, it's loud, it wants payback. It whispers to you, don't let them get away with it. Make them feel what they made you feel. And in that moment, revenge feels like justice. It feels like relief, it feels like power. But what feels good in the heat of pain often feels bitter in the cold clarity that follows. Revenge promises satisfaction, but it delivers emptiness. It lures you with the illusion of control, but it actually drags you into the same darkness you were trying to escape, because now, instead of just being hurt, you've become the one doing the hurting. You've crossed the same line that once wounded you. And the truth is, no matter how justified you feel, you don't come out cleaner, you come out covered in the same mess. It's a dangerous transaction. You trade your peace for a moment of pride. You sacrifice your long-term character for a short-term high, and that high fades quickly. The moment passes, but the consequences often linger longer than you anticipated. Because revenge doesn't just cost your reputation. It costs your sleep, it costs your self-respect, it costs your ability to look in the mirror and say, I handled that with grace. Ask yourself, what do you actually win when you get even? Do you feel better or just more bitter? Do you gain healing or just another layer of pain disguised as victory? The truth is, when you retaliate, you're not resolving the wound, you're reopening it. Over and over again, and every time you replay the moment, every time you wish them pain, you bind yourself to the very thing that hurt you in the first place. You don't rise by dragging someone else down. You rise by choosing not to let their behaviors shape yours. You rise by staying rooted in your values, even when your emotions beg you to abandon them. Now, that doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. It doesn't mean you tolerate injustice. It means you outgrow the need to match their energy. You handle things through boundaries, not bitterness, through wisdom, not wrath. Because there's a difference between reacting like the wounded and responding like the wise. One keeps the pain alive, the other sets you free. Revenge feels good in the moment because it feeds your ego. But healing feeds your soul. And the soul is what you have to live with long after the crowd has stopped watching, long after the story has cooled, long after the moment has passed. When you walk away without trying to get even, people may call you weak. Let them. They only say that because they've never tasted the strength it takes to forgive, to let go, or to rise above. But those who understand the weight of inner peace, they know it's the most powerful revenge of all, to move on while the other person still wonders why you did. There comes a moment in every conflict when you're faced with a choice. Will you fight to prove your point, or will you walk away to protect your peace? And while proving your point might feel like victory in the moment, protecting your peace is the kind of triumph that lasts. It's natural to want to be understood, to want to explain yourself, to want them to see your side, to admit they were wrong, to recognize the truth you're standing on. But here's the hard truth. Some people don't want to understand. They're not listening to hear you. They're waiting to respond, to defend, to twist, or to attack. And in the end, it doesn't matter how loud you speak if their mind was already made up. You can spend hours, even days, trying to break through that wall, trying to clarify, justify, or defend your stance. But all the while, your energy is draining. Your spirit is shrinking. You're giving away something far more valuable than your words, your peace. And once you trade that away just to be right, you'll find that being right doesn't feel so fulfilling after all. Peace is quiet. It doesn't clap back. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't need to win arguments or finish every debate with a knockout punch. Peace is the calm center in the storm. It's the strength to say, I know who I am, and I don't need your validation to prove it. That is real power, because anyone can argue, but not everyone can stay rooted when their ego is under attack. There's a maturity that comes with choosing your peace over your pride. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you value your mental, emotional, and spiritual health more than the fleeting satisfaction of proving someone wrong. It means you recognize that some battles are traps in disguise, distractions meant to pull you off your path and drain you of your clarity. Think of how many hours people lose defending their name in conversations that never should have started. How much energy is spent revisiting arguments, trying to fix someone's perception, trying to prove a truth that will never be accepted by someone committed to misunderstanding. And while you're fighting for your point, your peace is slipping through your fingers, quietly, silently, until you realize too late. You won the argument, but lost your balance. Peace doesn't always look like silence. Sometimes peace is walking away. Sometimes peace is saying, this conversation doesn't serve me anymore. Sometimes it's choosing not to answer the text, not to return the insult, not to keep dragging something that's already stealing your light, because you can't heal in the same space that's constantly wounding you. You were not put on this earth to explain your worth to people who are determined not to see it. You were not born to spend your life in emotional courtrooms defending yourself against people who only want to hear the echo of their own noise. You're here to protect something sacred, your peace. And when you learn to do that, you stop needing to prove anything to anyone. You just live, unapologetically, undisturbed. In a world that glorifies loud opinions, fast comebacks, and constant reaction, silence is often misunderstood. People see it as passive, as cowardly, as weak. But those who have truly matured Those who have walked through fire and come out refined know that silence isn't the absence of power, it's the evidence of it. Silence is the strength it takes to sit in the storm and not flinch. It's the wisdom to know that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every insult deserves a reply. Anyone can raise their voice, anyone can lash out, argue, or post a clever retort for all the world to see. That's easy. But to stay grounded when your pride is provoked, that takes something rare, that takes discipline. It's tempting to react when someone disrespects you, to let your emotions drive the wheel, to show them you're not the one to play with. But when you do that, you allow someone else's behavior to dictate yours. You hand them the remote to your peace and say, "Here, press whatever buttons you want. I'll respond every time." That's not power. That's control. You've just given it away. But silence says, "I'm in charge of me." It says, "I don't need to lower myself to be seen." It says, "I've outgrown the need to win petty wars." Because the truth is, silence is strategic. It's not just a reaction. It's a decision, a high-level decision, the kind made by people who know their energy is too valuable to be spent on the temporary satisfaction of ego. When you remain silent, you shift the dynamic. Suddenly, they're not sparring with you, they're sparring with themselves. They're left talking to an echo, trying to provoke someone who won't be moved. That's not weakness, that's elevation. That's what it looks like when someone refuses to come down from their peace to explain to someone who's committed to misunderstanding. And don't get it twisted. Silence doesn't mean you didn't notice the disrespect. It doesn't mean you approve of it or that it didn't hurt. It means you've mastered the art of responding without reacting. You've chosen the higher road not because it's easy, but because it protects something more important than your pride, your character. Think of the greatest leaders, the wisest mentors, the most respected people you know. They don't run their mouths in every conflict. They don't chase approval or retaliate over every slight. They observe, they measure, they respond when and if it serves their growth, because they understand that silence can say what words never could. "I'm not on your level anymore." Silence is emotional intelligence in action. It's spiritual posture. It's the deep knowing that not everything demands a reaction, and that sometimes the loudest thing you can say is absolutely nothing at all. That's not backing down, that's rising above. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to fight to prove your strength. And you never have to lower yourself just to match the level of someone who doesn't see your worth. There's a quiet kind of power in walking away, in staying silent after the disrespect, in not giving your energy to people who haven't earned it. Because real growth doesn't show up in loud declarations. It shows up in quiet decision. You grow the moment you realize that silence doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. It means you've learned to protect your peace instead of chasing validation. It means you've discovered the discipline to control your reactions, even when your emotions scream for revenge. And most of all, it means you've chosen elevation over ego. Let them wonder why you didn't respond. Let them sit in the discomfort of your absence. Let your silence echo louder than any insult they could ever throw, because people remember what you don't say just as much as what you do. And sometimes that's the greatest lesson you can teach. You're not here to argue for your value. You're not here to waste your brilliance trying to fix people who find comfort in disrespect. You're here to live, to rise, to walk in quiet confidence. And the moment you stop trying to prove anything is the moment they start to see everything. So stay silent, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to let your peace speak louder than their noise. That's not retreat. That's mastery.